بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. بسم الله. ونصلي ونسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Who didn't understand my talk today at Gohor? Had any questions on who was here? Who was awake? Any questions? Any questions? Anything I talked about today? You guys never have questions. It's not mine. You know, going over the story of Miraj, I was thinking over there, as I was blowing my nose quite a few times. I was looking at you all, and I was thinking, one of the important reasons, if someone was to say, oh, look at these poor Muslims, you know, gathering this 27th night of Rajab. Oh, doing that. Muqtadi'un, these innovators, people of bid'ah. And I was thinking, why is it we even have this story? I mean, today I spoke to you of some things about, I think, are important for me personally to take from Isra and Miraj. And at the end of my talk, I spoke about the Salah, if you remember. But I didn't get much detail on that. But one of the reasons I think also, as I was thinking, why we go over this, is that we have to remind ourselves about going home. When you're in a foreign country, you forget what your home is like. One of the Sufi stories is the story of a peacock. The peacock was taken from the garden of the king. You know, peacocks are very beautiful birds, and the Mughals used to use peacocks as watchdogs. Like if you have guineas, these guinea fowl from Africa, and my dad keeps them. The guinea fowl, if they know you, they don't make lots of noise, but if you're a stranger, they go really crazy, they make kinds of noise. And peacocks are the same way. So when they know you, they don't go but if they don't, they don't know you, they know you, they don't do that, but if they don't know you, they make all kinds of noise. So they're used because they're beautiful, and they're also used because they're good as watchdogs. Anyway, the peacock was taken from the garden of the Sultan, and it was put in a burlap sack. And the peacock couldn't see outside the sack, burlap, like a cloth bag, think of a big bag you might throw wheat in. So it's this big cloth bag, really rough, right? And so he's put into this bag from the garden of the Sultan. It's stitched up, and a little hole made to feed him some grain. He doesn't get nice food, just a bit of grain. And the peacock, over time, it even forgets what it looked like. It forgets what it even looks like. It forgets its beautiful plumage. It forgets the beauty of itself. And all it knows is the burlap, the sack it's in. And all it knows is the little bit of food it gets. But what is this peacock? Okay, sisters upstairs, you need to be quiet. If you want to come here to talk, go outside to the parking lot and talk. If you want to come and listen, listen. It also means the kids too. So if your kids are being disruptive, then you need to remove them. As simple as that. You have no right to disturb other women who want to listen. Everyone has a hak. Anyway, so what is the peacock? The peacock is you. You're the peacock. Paradise is the garden. And you're in the sack of the dunya. You're in the sack of the dunya. And you have forgotten your home, your watan. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam back to the watan, to the homeland, so that he could see it himself. He would see it himself. And he would be able then to come back to his people and tell them of the place that they had forgotten. And this is why we need to remember these type of things. And I want you to take that very seriously. Because at the end of the day, every soul tastes death. And every soul is brought back to the homeland. But blessed is the soul who is already as if it has been there. As if it's already been there. And it's no longer a strange land that was forgotten, but it was a place that was expected and desired. We would not be someone like Salman al-Farisi or Sayyidina Ali, two men who Jannah desired. I am not that man that Jannah desires. I am not one of those two. But we can try to be like men who were desired. We can try to be like men who were desired by Jannah. You can at least, as the Prophet teaches us, if you can't weep, then make yourself weep. If crying doesn't come to you naturally out of love, loss, fear of Allah, then at least make yourself pretend to weep. You can do that at least. Isra was reading today in Salat al-Maghrib from Surah al-Najm. And of course that's the surah where so much tafsir is done about this night that we are gathering to remember. And he mentions Allah Azza wa Jal, وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ نَزْلَةً أُخْرَى. He saw him at another station, عند سدرة المنتهى, at the Sidratul Muntaha, at the Lote Tree of the end point, Muntaha, the last point. Ibn Salih, rahimahullah, and this is actually taken from a larger book, this section on. So this book actually, this is one book, but it's actually just one chapter. This book is a chapter from a 15-volume book. This is a chapter by Ibn Salih on his Surah of the Prophet. And it's just on the Miraj. And he has a bit of a section on tafsir, a section of Surah al-Najm. ثُمَّ رُفِيَ إِلَى سِدْرَةِ الْمُنْتَهَى. Then he, sallallahu was taken to the Sidratul Muntaha, the Sidra, the Lote Tree of the Muntaha, of the end point. وَغَشِيَهَا مِنْ أَنْوَارَ خَلَائِقٍ. And then he was surrounded with lights of creation. وَمِنْ أَنْوَارَ مَلَائِكَ أَمْثَالَ غُرْبَانٍ حِينَ يَقُبُّ عَلَى شَجَرَةٍ. And he was surrounded with lights of angels. He described it as something like butterflies, brilliant butterflies, like going around, these butterflies going around and around and around. And this was the Sidratul Muntaha. Muhammad sallallahu was taken there. Now what's interesting about this being taken to the Sidratul Muntaha is that when you also flip through the book here, and he's got a large section about some hadith. مبحث أول نصوص الحديث مروية في هذا الباب. He cites a number of hadith that are narrated in this issue of the Isra and Mi'raj. He cites a long hadith here that is Ibn Salih, where Imam Suyuti, rahimahullah, is narrating from Sahih Muslim a long hadith about the night of ascension. And he goes through a Sama' ad-Dunya, and he arrives to the place of Sayyidina Adam. And then as-Sama'a Thaniya, the second heaven of Isa and Yahya alayhim as-salam. إلى السماء الثالثة, to the third one, which is Yusuf alayhi salam. إلى السماء الرابعة, to the fourth, which is Idris alayhi salam. To السماء الخامسة, to Harun alayhi salam. إلى السماء السادسة, to Musa alayhi salam. To the Sama'a Sabi'ah, which is the seventh heaven, which is Ibrahim alayhi salam, where he is leaning against Bayt al-Ma'mur, which is the archetype, the asl of the Kaaba. When he says here, the Prophet ﷺ, وَإِذَا هُوَ يَدْخُلُهُ كُلُّ يَوْمٍ 70,000 مَلَائِكَةٍ لَا يَرُونَ إِلَيْهِ, that in one paradisial day, 70,000 angels enter into the Bayt al-Ma'mur, never to enter it again. And this idea of 70,000 is very important, because, as you know, between a believer, of an Arab, and Allah are 70,000 veils of light and darkness. There are 7 verses of Fatiha, for example. This number of 7, there are 7 spiritual faculties that make up a human being, called the nafs, and then the elementals, the khalid, the physical body. And a person is on a journey. A person is on a journey to open up himself or herself to Allah Azza wa Jal, to open himself up. And our Mashayikh, for example, talk about when you traverse through the level of the qalb and the level of the ruh and the level of the seer, for example, and you move to these different lata'if, these spiritual faculties that are written about by whether the Qadari Mashayikh or the Naqshbandi Mashayikh, that as you progress through them, slowly, as you realize Tawheed more and more, 10,000 of the 70,000 veils are lifted. And this is what the Mujaddid Al-Fathani Ahmed Suhindi is talking about. Until a person then is liberated, a person is liberated from the veils of the dunya to arrive to a state of shuhud, or witnessing of Allah Azza wa Jalla while they're in the dunya. And so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah al-Najm that he sallallahu arrived to Sidratul Muntaha. So he traverses these 7 tabaqat. Muhammad sallallahu traverses these 7 tabaqat, these 7 stations, levels of the paradise. From the lowest one of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam to that, the 7th of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. And so this shows a unique quality of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of his comprehensiveness, of him subsuming, taking within himself these different realities of his fellow prophets, from his father Adam alayhi salam to the end point of his father Ibrahim alayhi salam, and then those who are in between, the various anbiya that are in the 7 tabaqat, the 7 stations or levels of paradise. But Muhammad was not associated with one of these 7. But he goes beyond Jibreel alayhi salam until he gets to Sidratul Muntaha. And then he describes it as it's mentioned here. Ibn Salih, he mentions that here then. This place where it is this beautiful tree, from its base, rivers of paradise gush forth. It is of all types of colors, and it is where ilm, knowledge, any type of knowledge you can acquire, that you can acquire, ends. And Muhammad ﷺ moves beyond that until he enters into the divine presence in a place that is not a place, where Jibreel alayhi salam ceases to go. And Jibreel said, Inna Rabbaka yusabbih, your Lord, Muhammad, your Lord yusabbih, is making tasbih. And Muhammad says, Jibreel, what's he saying? What is Allah saying? Azza wa Jalla. يقول سبوح قدوس رب الملائكة والروح سبقت رحمتي وغضبي. In this place, Jibreel alayhi salam tells Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Your Lord is making tasbih. He says, Subuhun Kudusun. Allah describes Himself as Subuhun Kudusun, transcendent, 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 perfect, complete, without deficiency. This is not the statement of a egotistic God, but this is a statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, affirming the reality of all things, that in His being, He is all perfect. Everything with Him is perfect. Everything is complete. Every quality that is divine is the quality of a true reality that describes and is Allah Azza wa Jal. And everything else other than Allah that exists is deficient. Nothing has a taqdisiyat. Nothing has this state of absolute, real perfection of being except Allah Azza wa Jal. And so He affirms this. And He is the Lord of the angels and the Ruh of the angel of revelation, Jibreel alayhi salam. These angelic beings which are themselves, in their own created nature, states of perfection in as much as they don't sin. But that's because they don't have ikhtiyar. They don't have choice. They don't have irada. They don't have the capacity because they can't make that decision to do that. It is their nature to be creatures that praise Allah, are obedient to Allah, but without a state of choice on their own. Yet they are fully aware, and they're fully aware of their being, but this is their state. But He continues, Sabakat rahmati ghadabi, my mercy outstrips, overcomes my anger. This is how Allah describes Himself. This is how Jibreel alayhi salam describes what His Lord, the Lord of Muhammad alayhi salam, is saying. And this is not because the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal is engrossed with Himself. It is that His creatures understand Him. He says these words, Subuhun Kudusun. He says these words, that Jibreel, that others would hear these words, that they would know who this God is, this Creator, this one which is qa'im bin nafsihi, which is self-sufficient, which exists in the fact that He is what He is. You know, in the Old Testament, in the Greek Septuagint, when Musa alayhi salam in the Greek, it says, when asked about Moses, when God describes Himself, He said, ego eimi ho'on, in the Greek. Ego eimi ho'on. I am that which is. I am that which is. I am that which exists. This is what the believer has to appreciate. The believer has to understand that his or her relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal is about engaging, being involved with this one that is. That you are with the one that is. Understand that. It's not too deep philosophically to think about, but understand that. And Muhammad ﷺ, this night journey laid out for you in the various ahadith, no matter what you read of the rivers of the garden, of the things, they only exist because Allah is. And the most important thing is not this tree, not these leaves, not that soil of the paradise of musk or rivers of milk. Those are just also things that you walk on, you see, but they are not you. It is you as a human being, as the son and daughter of Adam. It is you for which these things are given. And you have to appreciate that. And so, he mentions here in Surah al-Najm that he goes to the Muntaha. But then Allah continues, and this is what Isra was reading, and this is what caught me when he was reading. I was listening to him read, and as he was going through it, and I think it was the second rak'ah, he mentioned, وَأَنَّ لَيْسَ الْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. A man only has that which he journeys at. You only have that for which you make journey. You only have that in which you apply yourself. You only have that in which you apply yourself. Muhammad ﷺ had, as I said, he had to get on the buraq. He had to mount the animal. He had to mount it. He had to ascend to each bab of the 7 tabaqat. They had to knock and ask, who is it? There was effort in each of these things. But in the effort, there was also the call. It was Allah who sent Jibreel. It was Allah who sent Buraq. It was Allah who has permitted Muhammad ﷺ in each station to be entering into each station, each tabaqah. But he is also engaging with Jibreel. There is the jadba, the pull, and there is the suluk, there is the effort, there is the sa'i. There is that which is the absolute fadl of Allah, that which is just given, and which you have no control over. And then that is your juhud, that is your effort, your work, your amal, your shughul, in which you engage in. You have to have both of these. One that you give, and one that you ask Allah to give you, which is that which is just given. وَأَنَّ سَعَيُهُ سَوْفَ يُرَى. And his effort, his journey will be seen. ثُمَّ يُجْزَاهُ جَزَاءَ أَوْفَى. You'll be given that which is most appropriate jaza, recompense. وَأَنَّ إِلَى رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى. And it's to your Lord is the end point. You see, the muntaha of Muhammad ﷺ wasn't a station in the garden. It was Allah. Understand that. His intaha, his muntaha, place of arrival, the end point, is not just a place in the garden. It transcends the place in the garden. It transcends because it goes beyond Surat al-Muntaha. That is the end point. But his end point wasn't that. It was to his Lord. And that is your gift. As a follower of Muhammad ﷺ. That is your gift. That's your gift. And so your life journey now must mirror this effort of arriving to the one thing. Fafiru ilallah. Allah says, flee to Allah in the Quran. Is Allah not sufficient for His servant? And that's the point. Is God not sufficient for you? That's what you have to realize. Sufficiency, ghina, is only in Allah. That's it. That's the only one thing that is sufficient for you. For you'll never be satisfied, O son of Adam, with clothing and wealth and position. You'll never get your full of that. You're created to where you don't get your full. The only men and women who get full of that are those who turn away from it in their hearts. That's it. And that's what Islam is about. Islam is to be the sultan of the world. It is to be the custodian of the world. It is to walk gently, as if walking, as I say, walking on rice paper, where you don't shatter the world. You don't rip the rice paper as you walk on it. But you walk gently, hone it on the world. This is the sign of the believer. But not in some subjugated state, in humility, broken down, defeated. Muhammad ﷺ, because of his hayah, his state of modesty, which is the akhlaq, the khuluq of this ummah. The kulli khuluq wa khuluq Islam hayat. Every religion has its khuluq, its quality, and that of Islam is hayat. Because of his hayat, he didn't go back a final time at the advice of his brother Musa to reduce the prayers anymore, out of hayat. And Allah had already written previously in the decree before the creation of Muhammad ﷺ, that there would be 50 prayers for his people. Allah never changed. And that's why we have for every hasana ashara. For every harf ashara. Because it's everything times 10. Allah pours out more than what is asked for. Because his decree did not change. He kept 50 at 50. But he reduced the burden on you to carry 50, but rewards you of the 50. This is the generosity of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to appreciate Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and what he was given. Because what he is given is our gift. It's gifts for us. And I mean that. That's what I believe personally. I may be wrong, but I think that there's truth in that. I didn't want to talk too much. I hope you understood what I was talking about. I'm going to pop home so I can get some sleep and then move it. Not feeling good. So you all forgive me of that. That's all I wanted to say. I don't know what else to say to you. I'm tired. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك وصلى الله عليه وسلم. Ya Allah, we ask you to bless these people who gathered here about their love for you and love for your prophets. We ask you, Allah, to pour out upon all of us who gathered here, Allah, that we will seek you and desire you, just as we desire nothing else. And we ask you, Allah, to make yourself sufficient for us. We ask you, Allah, to be people who are wise in the world, who are not bitten twice, who do not allow themselves to be deceived more than once. We ask you, Allah, to give us eyes that see, ears that hear, and tongues that speak the truth. We ask you, Allah, to keep our wits about us. And we ask you, Allah, no matter what you give us, of things physical, money, clothing, position, that those things are received, they're used, not misused, but our hearts are attached to them. And if we had them in our hands, or they weren't, it would make no difference. It would be equal. Let us be people who feel that if they lose you, they've lost all things. And let us be people, that if they have found you, know that if everything was taken away, that they've lost not one thing. You, Allah, are sufficient for us. Make that real for us before we die. For ourselves, our wives, our sons, our daughters, our families, our neighbors, and for those who are Muslim, and for those who aren't Muslim. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد. جزاك الله خير.